checked my phone for the 14th time in 2 minutes. 12:47 a.m. The hotel suite was silent except for the sound of my own breathing and the distant hum of the air conditioning unit struggling against the August heat. The bed was still made, untouched. White Egyptian cotton sheets perfectly smooth and mocking. Rose petals were scattered across the comforter, arranged by the hotel staff into the shape of a heart, a romantic gesture that now felt like a cruel joke. My tuxedo jacket was draped over the back of a chair. My bow tie hung loose around my neck, and my wife, Natalie, the woman I had married exactly 6 hours and 47 minutes ago, was gone. Not in the bathroom, not on the balcony, not downstairs getting ice or a late-night snack. Gone. And so was Derek, my best man, my college roommate, the person I had trusted more than anyone except the woman who had just become my wife. The text message from my cousin Ashley was still glowing on my phone screen. "Ryan, I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I should tell you or not, but I just saw Natalie getting into Derek's car in the parking garage. They were holding hands. It looked bad. I'm really sorry." I had read those words so many times in the past 20 minutes that they had lost meaning, becoming just shapes and letters that my brain refused to process into reality. This couldn't be happening. Not on my wedding night. Not with Derek. Not with Natalie, who had looked at me just hours ago with tears in her eyes as she said her vows, promising to love me forever, to be faithful, to honor me for the rest of our lives. Those vows were still echoing in my ears, her voice breaking with emotion as she told me I was her everything, her soulmate, her forever person. I stood up from the edge of the bed where I'd been sitting, frozen, my legs unsteady beneath me. The room spun slightly, whether from the champagne I had consumed at the reception or from the shock that was coursing through my system. I couldn't tell. I walked to the window, pulled back the heavy curtains, and looked out at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, my wife of 6 hours was with another man, my best friend, the man who had stood next to me at the altar, who had held the rings, who had given a toast at the reception about how happy he was for us, about how we were perfect together, about how he had never seen two people more in love. The memory of that toast made bile rise in my throat. I remembered Derek's face as he raised his glass, smiling, charming as always, telling the room full of our family and friends that he knew from the moment he met Natalie that she was special. "I told Ryan that day," Derek had said, his voice carrying across the reception hall. "I said, man, if you don't marry this girl, you're the biggest fool who ever lived." Everyone had laughed. Natalie had blushed, reached over to squeeze my hand under the table, and Derek had looked right at her, held her gaze just a second too long, and added, "I've never seen Ryan happier than he's been since you came into his life." At the time, I had thought it was a beautiful sentiment. Now, replaying it in my mind with the knowledge of where they were right now, I heard something else. I heard possession. I heard longing. I heard a man talking about a woman he wanted for himself. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another text from Ashley. "Are you okay? Do you want me to come up? Or should I try to find them?" I started to type a response, then stopped. What was I going to say? That I was fine? That this was all a misunderstanding? That my bride of 6 hours and my best friend had probably just gone out for a totally innocent midnight drive? I deleted the half-written message and instead called Natalie directly. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then went to voicemail. Her voice, bright and happy on the recording, asked me to leave a message. I hung up without saying anything and immediately called Derek. Same result. Straight to voicemail after 4 rings. I threw the phone onto the bed with more force than I intended. It bounced once and landed face down among the rose petals. I wanted to scream. I wanted to put my fist through the wall. I wanted to tear this perfect romantic hotel suite apart piece by piece until it matched the destruction I felt inside my chest. But instead, I just stood there, frozen, staring at nothing, trying to understand how I had gotten here. 6 months ago, life had been perfect, better than perfect. Natalie and I had been dating for 2 years, living together for 1, and every single day had felt like a gift. She was a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital, working long shifts with sick kids, coming home exhausted but always finding the energy to smile at me, to ask about my day, to curl up on the couch and watch whatever mindless television show I had queued up. I was a high school history teacher and basketball coach, a job that didn't pay much but that I loved, and Natalie had never once made me feel inadequate about the salary difference between us. We had talked about getting married almost from the beginning. It wasn't one of those relationships where you had to wonder where it was going or play games about commitment. We both knew. We were it for each other. So when I finally proposed on the beach in Cape May, where we had taken our first vacation together, it felt less like a question and more like a confirmation of what we already understood to be true. The proposal had been simple. I had wanted it to be perfect, had spent weeks planning, but in the moment, all my rehearsed speeches had evaporated. I had just dropped to one knee in the sand as the sun was setting, pulled out the ring I had been carrying in my pocket all day, and asked her to marry me. She had started crying before I even finished the question, nodding her head, saying yes over and over again, laughing and crying at the same time. We had called our families from the beach. We had celebrated with champagne back at our hotel. We had stayed up all night talking about our future, about the wedding, about kids, about growing old together. The ring had cost me everything I had saved over 3 years. I had been setting aside money since before I even met Natalie, just saving for some vague future purpose, and when I started dating her, that purpose had crystallized. The ring was a platinum band with a round diamond, 1.5 carats, simple and elegant, exactly what I knew she would want. The jeweler had tried to upsell me to something bigger, flashier, but I knew Natalie. She didn't want flashy. She wanted meaningful. So I had chosen a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious, and I had spent every penny of my savings to buy it. She had loved it. She wore it constantly, would catch herself staring at it during the day, would send me pictures of it catching the light with captions like, "Still can't believe I get to marry you." Her friends were jealous, which she reported to me with guilty delight. Her mother had cried when she saw it, told me I had chosen perfectly, and Derek, when I had shown it to him before the proposal, had whistled low and said I had good taste. Derek, I couldn't think about him without feeling physically sick. Derek Patterson, 6'2", blonde hair that he spent too much time styling, a smile that made people trust him instantly, a job in pharmaceutical sales that paid him twice what I made. We had met freshman year of college, been randomly assigned as roommates, and against all odds had actually become genuine friends. We were different in almost every way. He was outgoing where I was reserved, flashy where I was understated, always the center of attention while I was content to observe from the edges. But somehow it worked. He brought me out of my shell. I kept him grounded. We balanced each other. We had stayed close after college even as our lives diverged. He moved to the city, got the high-paying sales job, dated a string of beautiful women who never lasted more than a few months. I moved back to my hometown, got the teaching job, lived a quieter life. But we talked regularly, got together whenever we could, maintained the kind of friendship that felt unshakable. When I started dating Natalie, Derek was one of the first people I told. And when I decided to propose, Derek was the first person I asked to be my best man. He had introduced himself to Natalie at a group dinner about 3 months into our relationship. I remembered that night vividly because I had been nervous about it, worried that my quiet, bookish girlfriend and my loud, charismatic best friend wouldn't mesh well, but they had gotten along immediately. Derek had complimented her dress, asked about her work at the hospital, made her laugh with stories about our college days. By the end of the night, Natalie had declared that she understood why Derek was my best friend, and that she was glad to finally meet the person I talked about so much. After that, Derek had become a regular part of our lives. He would drive out to visit us, stay on our couch, join us for dinners and game nights and weekend trips. Natalie seemed to enjoy his company. She would laugh at his jokes, engage in the playful banter he was known for, participate in the group dynamic that developed when the three of us were together. I had been happy that 2 of my favorite people liked each other. It had felt like everything was falling into place. Looking back now, with the cruel clarity of hindsight, I could see moments I had missed. The way Derek's eyes would linger on Natalie just a beat too long. The way he always seemed to position himself next to her in group photos. The way he would find excuses to touch her shoulder, her arm, her back, casual contact that I had dismissed as just Derek's naturally tactile personality. The way Natalie would sometimes check her phone and smile, and when I asked who she was texting, she would say, Just work stuff, or just my sister, in a tone that didn't invite follow-up questions. Had they been involved this whole time? Had the entire relationship I thought I was building with Natalie been a lie, with Derek waiting in the wings, playing the role of supportive friend while secretly plotting to take her from me? Or was this something new, something that had developed recently during the wedding planning when Derek had been so involved, so helpful, so present? The wedding planning. God, the wedding planning. We had set a date for August, giving ourselves 8 months to put everything together. Natalie had been so excited, had started a Pinterest board within hours of getting engaged, had spent every free moment researching venues and florists and photographers. I had been less involved in the details, content to let her make most of the decisions, showing up when she needed me for tastings and meetings, but generally trusting her vision for the day. And Derek had been there for all of it. When I was at work, unable to get away for a venue tour, Derek had offered to go with Natalie to check out places. When we needed someone to negotiate with vendors, Derek, with his sales background, had volunteered. When Natalie was stressed about timelines and budgets, Derek had been the one to talk her down, to reassure her, to help her problem solve. At the time, I had been grateful. I had thought what an amazing friend I had, to be so generous with his time, to care so much about making our wedding perfect. Now I realized he had been building intimacy. He had been creating situations where he and Natalie were alone together, where she would come to rely on him, to see him as a partner in this massive endeavor, and I had facilitated it all. Too busy with work, too trusting, too stupid to see what was happening right in front of my face. The wedding itself had cost far more than Natalie and I could afford on our own. Both sets of parents had contributed, but the bulk of the expense had fallen to us. I had taken out a small loan to cover my portion, money I would be paying back for the next 3 years. It was worth it, I had told myself. This was the day we would remember forever, the beginning of our lives together. What was a little debt compared to creating perfect memories? I had worked extra hours all summer, taking on summer school teaching and running basketball camps, doing whatever I could to add to the wedding fund. I had skipped my usual week at the beach with my family because I couldn't afford to take the time off. I had driven my aging car with its check engine light perpetually on rather than fixing it because every dollar needed to go toward the wedding. I had eaten ramen and sandwiches for lunch while Natalie was at work so we could afford the upgraded meal package she wanted for the reception. And Derek had contributed too in his way. He had paid for the rehearsal dinner, an expensive affair at a steakhouse downtown that had cost him thousands. He had insisted, said it was his gift to us, wouldn't hear of us paying for any of it. I had been moved by the generosity. Now I wondered what he had really been celebrating. The rehearsal dinner had been last night, just 24 hours ago, though it felt like a lifetime. Everyone who was in the wedding party had been there, plus immediate family, about 40 people total. Derek had stood up to make a toast, had talked about friendship and love and new beginnings. He had looked at Natalie when he said, "I hope I find someone someday who looks at me the way Natalie looks at Ryan." She had blushed. I had felt proud. Everyone had raised their glasses. After dinner, tradition dictated that Natalie and I shouldn't see each other until the wedding. She had gone back to the hotel with her bridesmaids for a girls' night. I had gone to a different hotel with Derek and the groomsmen for what was supposed to be a low-key guys' night. We had played cards, drunk beer, told stories. Derek had been in rare form, funny and energetic, keeping everyone entertained. Around midnight, he had stepped out to take a phone call. When he came back 20 minutes later, he seemed distracted, kept checking his watch. I had asked if everything was okay. He had said it was fine, just some work stuff he needed to handle in the morning. Had he been talking to Natalie? Had they been coordinating even then, planning their escape from my wedding, from our marriage, from the life we were supposed to start together? This morning, my wedding day, had started early. I had woken up with nerves and excitement churning in my stomach in equal measure. Derek had been up already, had ordered room service breakfast for everyone, coffee and bagels and fruit. We had eaten while getting ready, helping each other with cufflinks and ties, taking goofy pre-wedding photos. Derek had seemed normal, happy, excited for me. There had been no sign that in less than 24 hours he would be leaving a hotel with my wife in the middle of our wedding night. The ceremony had been at 4 o'clock at a beautiful old church where Natalie's family had been members for generations. The church had been full, packed with everyone we loved, decorated with white flowers and ribbons and candles. The music had started, and I had taken my place at the altar with Derek beside me. My hands had been shaking. Derek had whispered, "You've got this, man. She's going to be beautiful." And then the doors had opened and Natalie had appeared. And Derek had been right. She was beautiful. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. She had worn a classic white dress, fitted at the top with a full skirt, lace sleeves, and a long train. Her dark hair had been pulled back into an elegant updo with small white flowers woven through it. She had been crying before she even started down the aisle, happy tears that made her eyes shine. Her father had walked her toward me, and I had thought my heart might actually burst from happiness. The ceremony itself was a blur of emotion. I remembered saying my vows, my voice cracking as I promised to love her forever. I remembered her vows in return, how she had looked right into my eyes and promised to be faithful, to stand by me, to build a life with me. I remembered the exchange of rings, the cool metal sliding onto her finger, her hands trembling as she placed my ring on my hand. I remembered the minister pronouncing us husband and wife. I remembered the kiss, her lips soft against mine, the applause of our family and friends washing over us. And I remembered Derek standing right there the entire time, holding our rings, smiling at us, looking genuinely happy. Had it all been an act? Had he been standing there plotting how to take her from me, even as he watched us pledge our lives to each other? The reception had been at a country club, a beautiful venue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a golf course and distant mountains. We had our first dance to a song Natalie had chosen, something slow and romantic that I couldn't even remember the name of now. We had cut the cake, a 3-tier vanilla and chocolate masterpiece that had cost more than I wanted to think about. We had done all the traditional things, the bouquet toss and the garter removal and the speeches. Derek's best man speech had been the highlight of the reception. He had been funny and touching in equal measure, telling stories about our friendship, about the first time he met Natalie, about how he knew we were meant for each other. He had raised his glass and said, "To Ryan and Natalie, may your love only grow stronger with each passing day. May you always make each other laugh, and may you have a lifetime of happiness together." We had all drunk to that. Natalie had been crying again, happy tears. She had mouthed "thank you" to Derek across the room. The reception had gone until 11. We had danced and laughed and celebrated with everyone we loved. Natalie had changed out of her wedding dress into a shorter white cocktail dress for easier movement. I had shed my jacket and rolled up my sleeves. We had been exhausted and happy, riding the high of the day, savoring every moment. At 11, we had done our grand exit. Everyone had lined up outside with sparklers, creating a tunnel of light for us to run through. We had climbed into the back of a town car the wedding party had arranged, waving at our guests, headed for the hotel suite where we were supposed to spend our wedding night before flying out to Hawaii in the morning for our honeymoon. Derek had been in that line of well-wishers. I specifically remembered seeing him, sparkler in hand, that same smile on his face. He had given me a thumbs up as we drove away. That was the last time I saw him. We had gotten to the hotel suite around 11:30. Natalie had immediately kicked off her heels, laughing about how much her feet hurt. I had poured us each a glass of champagne from the bottle the hotel had left chilling for us. We had toasted to our marriage, to our future, to the perfect day we had just had. And then Natalie's phone had rung. She had looked at the screen, frowned slightly. "It's Miranda," she had said, referring to her maid of honor. "I should probably take this." She seemed really upset earlier about something her boyfriend said. I had nodded, told her to take her time. She had stepped out onto the balcony to take the call, closing the glass door behind her for privacy. I had sat down on the couch, exhausted, happy, already thinking about the week in Hawaii stretching ahead of us. The call had gone on longer than I expected. 10 minutes, 15. Through the glass door, I could see Natalie pacing, talking animatedly, gesturing with her free hand. Finally, after about 20 minutes, she had come back inside. "Everything okay?" I had asked. "Yeah, she's just having drama with Jake. I told her to dump him, but she won't listen." Natalie had seemed distracted, had immediately picked up her purse and started digging through it. "Hey, I left my phone charger in Miranda's car. She's still at the hotel bar. Do you mind if I run down and grab it real quick? I want to make sure my phone is charged for the flight tomorrow." "Want me to come with you?" I had asked, starting to get up. No, you stay here and relax. I'll just be 5 minutes. Pour yourself another glass of champagne." She had kissed me quickly, grabbed her room key, and headed for the door. That had been at midnight exactly. I remembered looking at the bedside clock as she left, and now it was 12:52, and she was gone. And Miranda's car story had been a lie, and everything about this perfect day had been a carefully constructed illusion designed to disguise the fact that my wife was planning to leave me with my best friend on our wedding night. My phone buzzed again. I picked it up, hoping irrationally that it would be Natalie with some explanation that would make all of this make sense. Instead, it was Ashley again. "Ryan, I just talked to Miranda. She said she's been at home for the past hour. She wasn't at the hotel bar. Natalie lied to you about the phone charger." I sat down on the bed, the strength going out of my legs. The rose petals scattered around me, and somewhere in my mind I noted the absurdity of it. Sitting in the middle of romantic petals on my wedding night while my wife was somewhere else with another man. I texted Ashley back, "Thank you for telling me. I'll be okay." But I wouldn't be okay. I knew that with a certainty that felt like a stone in my chest. Nothing was going to be okay ever again. My marriage, all 6 hours of it, was over before it had even really begun. The woman I had loved for 2 years, had planned a future with, had promised forever to just hours ago, had left me, and the friend I had trusted more than anyone, the person who had stood beside me through college and heartbreak and career struggles and all the ups and downs of life, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I thought about Hawaii, about the honeymoon we were supposed to leave for in the morning. I had booked us a beachfront bungalow at a resort in Maui, had saved for over a year to afford it, had planned every detail to make it perfect for her. Snorkeling and sunset dinners and lazy days on the beach. I thought about the house we had just closed on last month, the fixer-upper we had bought together, the place we were supposed to move into when we got back from the honeymoon. I thought about the life we had planned, the children we had talked about having, the future that had seemed so certain and real just hours ago. All of it was gone, destroyed, over, and I was sitting alone in a hotel suite full of rose petals and champagne and broken dreams, while somewhere in this city, my wife and my best friend were together, probably laughing at how easily they had fooled me, how stupid I had been to never suspect, how perfect they had played their roles right up until the moment they could finally be together. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked the same as I had this morning. Same brown hair, same hazel eyes, same face that Natalie had kissed just hours ago when the minister pronounced us husband and wife, but I didn't feel the same. I felt hollowed out, carved empty, like someone had reached inside my chest and removed everything vital and left just a shell. The sound of the hotel room door opening made my heart leap. I ran out of the bathroom, hope and dread warring in my chest. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe Natalie was back with a perfectly reasonable explanation for where she had been. But it wasn't Natalie. It was Ashley, my cousin, using the spare key card I had given my parents for emergencies. She took one look at my face, and her expression crumpled with sympathy. "Oh, Ryan," she said softly, "I'm so sorry." And that's when I finally broke. I sank down onto the edge of the bed, and I started to cry. Ashley stayed with me that night. She didn't say much, just sat next to me on the couch while I alternated between crying and staring at nothing and checking my phone obsessively. Natalie never called. Derek never called. At some point around 3 a.m., exhaustion finally overtook everything else, and I fell asleep sitting up. Ashley's hand on my shoulder, a silent gesture of support that was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. I woke up at 6 a.m. to sunlight streaming through the windows I had forgotten to close. For about 5 seconds I didn't remember, and then it all came crashing back. A wave of pain so intense it was physical. My wedding night, Natalie, Derek, gone. I grabbed my phone from where it had fallen onto the couch cushions. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. Ashley was asleep in the armchair across from me, her neck bent at an uncomfortable angle. I stood up quietly, trying not to wake her, and went to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror again. My eyes were bloodshot and swollen. My hair was a mess. I still had on my wedding shirt and pants from yesterday. wrinkled now and smelling like champagne and desperation. When I came out, Ashley was awake, stretching and wincing at the crick in her neck. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice gentle. "Like my life is over," I said honestly. She stood up and came over to me, pulled me into a hug that I desperately needed. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be okay. I promise you're going to be okay." I wanted to believe her. But standing there in that hotel suite, surrounded by the remnants of what was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, okay seemed like a destination so far away, I couldn't even imagine the journey. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice muffled against her shoulder. "Ashley, what do I even do right now?" She pulled back, looked at me seriously. "First, you need to find out what actually happened. You need to talk to Natalie, get answers. Then you can decide what comes next." She was right. I needed information. I needed to understand. Maybe there was an explanation I hadn't considered. Maybe Natalie had gotten sick and Derek had taken her to the hospital and both their phones had died. Maybe there was a family emergency. Maybe. My mind spun with possibilities, each one feeling more desperate and unlikely than the last. I tried calling Natalie again. Straight to voicemail. Derek's phone, same thing. I texted them both. "Where are you? I'm worried, please call me." Nothing. I called Natalie's parents, trying to keep my voice steady, asking if they had heard from her. They hadn't. They sounded confused, asked if everything was okay. I lied and said everything was fine. She had just forgotten to charge her phone. I called Derek's parents with the same result. By 8 a.m., Ashley had convinced me to eat something. We ordered room service and I forced down some toast and coffee while she made calls to our mutual friends, trying to track down any information about where Natalie and Derek might be. Nobody had heard from them. Nobody had seen them since the reception. At 9:30, my phone finally rang. My heart leaped and I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it. Natalie's name on the screen. I answered before the first ring finished. "Natalie, where are you? Are you okay?" There was a pause, long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then her voice, small and strange. "Ryan, I'm so sorry. Those 4 words told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a medical emergency or a family crisis. This was exactly what I had feared." "Where are you?" I asked again, my voice harder now. "I'm at Derek's apartment. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." The confirmation felt like being punched in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Ashley grabbed my arm, steadying me. "You're at Derek's apartment," I repeated, making sure I heard her correctly. "On our wedding night. You left our hotel room and went to Derek's apartment." "I know how this looks," she started, and I almost laughed at the absurdity of that statement. "How this looks? Natalie, how this looks is that you left me on our wedding night to be with another man, my best friend, 6 hours after you married me. So please enlighten me, what am I missing?" She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice, the shakiness, the gasping breaths. Once upon a time, the sound of her crying would have broken my heart, would have made me want to comfort her and fix whatever was wrong. Now it just made me angry. "I didn't plan this," she said. "I swear I didn't plan this. It just happened." "What just happened, Natalie? Be specific." "Because from where I'm standing, something like this doesn't just happen. You don't accidentally leave your husband on your wedding night and end up at another man's apartment." She was quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her trying to figure out what to say, how to explain the inexplicable. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek and I have been seeing each other for about 3 months. It started during the wedding planning. We were spending so much time together, and you were always so busy with work, and he was just there, you know? He listened to me and made me laugh and made me feel special. And somewhere along the way, feelings developed that I didn't know what to do with. 3 months. They had been involved for 3 months. While I was working extra hours to pay for our wedding, while I was choosing my vows, while I was excitedly planning our honeymoon and our future, my fiancé and my best friend had been carrying on behind my back. "So why did you marry me?" I asked, my voice cold and controlled. "If you had feelings for Derek, if you've been involved with him for 3 months, why go through with the wedding?" "I thought I could make it work," she said, crying harder now. "I thought if we just got married, these feelings for Derek would go away. I thought I was just getting cold feet, just scared of commitment, and that once we were actually married, I would remember why I loved you and everything would be fine. And last night? I prompted. Our wedding night. What happened that made you leave? Derek texted me while I was on the phone with Miranda. He said he couldn't let me do this. He said he was in love with me, and he couldn't stand by and watch me marry you when he knew I had feelings for him too. He said he was leaving town, that he couldn't be around us anymore, that seeing us together was too painful, and I panicked. I couldn't stand the thought of never seeing him again, so I lied about the phone charger, and I went to him. I processed this information, each word a small cut. And when you got to his apartment, what happened? She hesitated. Ryan, I don't think... Tell me. I interrupted, my voice hard. You owe me that much at least. What happened when you got there? We talked. We talked for hours about what we felt, about what we wanted, about the mess we'd made, and we realized that we couldn't keep denying how we felt about each other. She paused, then added quietly, nothing physical happened. I know you probably don't believe me, but nothing happened. We just talked. I didn't know whether to believe her or not. Part of me wanted to think that at least she hadn't completely betrayed every vow she made. But the other part of me knew it didn't matter. Physical or not, she had chosen Derek over me on our wedding night. She had left our marriage bed to be with him. The technicality of whether they had been intimate didn't change the fundamental betrayal. So what now? I asked. What happens now, Natalie? I don't know, she admitted. I know I've hurt you terribly. I know there's probably no coming back from this. But Ryan, I need you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you. I do love you. I've always loved you. I'm just also in love with Derek, and I don't know how to reconcile those feelings. You can't reconcile them, I said flatly. You chose Derek the moment you left last night. You can't have both of us. You can't be married to me while having feelings for him. So you need to decide, right now, are you coming back here or are you staying with him? The silence stretched out between us, heavy and suffocating. I already knew what her answer would be. I could feel it in the quality of her silence, in the way she was struggling to find words. She had already chosen. She had chosen the moment she walked out of our hotel room. I think I need some time, she finally said. I need to figure out what I want, what I feel. This is all so confusing and overwhelming, and I can't think straight. Can you give me a few days to sort through my feelings? Something inside me hardened in that moment. The pain receded, replaced by a cold clarity. No, I said simply. What? No, I can't give you time to figure out your feelings. You're my wife, Natalie. We got married yesterday. We made vows to each other in front of everyone we love, and you broke those vows before we even spent one night together. So, no, I'm not going to sit around while you figure out whether you want to be married to me or be with Derek. You need to choose right now. Ryan, that's not fair. Fair? I almost shouted. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I spent every penny I had on a ring and a wedding for you? Is it fair that I worked myself to exhaustion to give you the perfect day? Is it fair that I stood at an altar yesterday and promised you forever while you and Derek were planning to do this? Don't talk to me about fair, Natalie. She was sobbing now, full-body sobs that I could hear through the phone. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. And now you need to choose. Come back here right now. Cut off all contact with Derek and commit to making this marriage work. Or stay with him and accept that our marriage is over. But you don't get both. You don't get to keep me on hold while you figure out which one of us you want more. I need time to think. You don't have time, I interrupted. Choose right now. Me or Derek. Our marriage or whatever fantasy you think you have with him. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her sitting in Derek's apartment, probably on his couch, maybe with him right there next to her, listening to this conversation. The thought made me sick. I can't choose right now, she finally whispered. I can't make that decision in this moment. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm so sorry. Then I'll make it for you, I said, my voice steady. Despite the storm raging inside me, our marriage is over. Don't come back to the hotel. Don't come back to our house. I'll have your things packed and sent to wherever you want them. You can contact me through a lawyer about the divorce. Ryan, please. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Ashley was staring at me with wide eyes, clearly having heard my side of the conversation. You okay? She asked softly. No, I said honestly. But I will be. Eventually. The rest of that day was a blur of phone calls and arrangements. I called my parents and told them what happened. My mother cried. My father offered to come get me, to bring me home, to do whatever I needed. I called the airline and canceled our honeymoon flights. I called the hotel we had booked in Maui and canceled the reservation. I called Natalie's parents and told them the truth, listened to her mother's shocked silence and her father's awkward attempts to apologize for his daughter's behavior. And then I called a lawyer. It was a Sunday, but I found someone who specialized in family law and was willing to meet with me that afternoon. Ashley drove me to the office, waited in the car while I went inside. The lawyer, a woman in her 50s named Barbara, listened to my story without judgment, took notes, and laid out my options. "You're in a strong position," she said. "The marriage was never consummated. You have evidence of her leaving with another man. In this state, you can file for an annulment rather than a divorce. It's faster, and it essentially declares that the marriage was never valid. Given the circumstances, a judge would almost certainly grant it." "How fast?" I asked. "If she doesn't contest it, we could have you legally unmarried in about 6 weeks. 6 weeks to erase what was supposed to be forever." It seemed both impossibly fast and unbearably slow, but I told Barbara to start the paperwork. I gave her all the information she needed, wrote her a check for the retainer fee that I couldn't afford, and walked out of that office feeling oddly lighter. I was taking action. I was moving forward. I wasn't sitting around waiting for Natalie to decide whether I was worth keeping. When I got back to Ashley's car, I had a text message from Derek. My stomach clenched when I saw his name. I almost deleted it without reading it, but something made me open it. "Ryan, I know sorry doesn't even begin to cover this. I know I've betrayed you in the worst possible way. I wish I could explain how this happened, but I don't even fully understand it myself. I fell in love with Natalie, and I know that's no excuse for what I did. You deserved better from both of us. You deserved honesty. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and I hate myself for hurting you like this." I read the message 3 times, feeling my anger build with each pass. He fell in love with Natalie, as if love was something that just happened to him, something outside his control, rather than a choice he made every time he texted her, every time he spent time alone with her, every time he actively pursued my fiancé behind my back. I typed out a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I settled on something simple. "Don't ever contact me again. You're not sorry, you're just sorry you got caught. You had 3 months to be honest with me. You had right up until I said my vows to tell me the truth. You didn't. You let me marry her knowing what you two were doing. That's not love, that's selfishness. Lose my number." I hit send and immediately blocked him. Then I blocked Natalie's number too. If she wanted to communicate with me, she could do it through lawyers like I told her. Ashley drove me back to my parents' house. I couldn't face the hotel suite again. Couldn't stand to be surrounded by rose petals and champagne and the ghost of what was supposed to be. My parents met me at the door, and my mother pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. My father stood behind her, his hand on my shoulder, his face set in the kind of quiet anger that meant he was furious but trying to control it for my sake. We sat in their living room, the same living room where I had grown up, where I had spent countless hours watching TV and doing homework and just being a kid, without any concept of how much life could hurt. My mother made tea that nobody drank. My father offered to go to Derek's apartment and have a conversation with him, which I declined despite part of me wanting to take him up on it. "What can we do?" my mother asked. "How can we help?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I just need time, I think. Time to process all of this. You can stay here as long as you need," my father said. "Your room is exactly as you left it." I thanked them and went upstairs to my childhood bedroom. Nothing had changed. My old posters were still on the walls. My bookshelf was still full of the same books I had read in high school. My twin bed was made with the same blue comforter I had picked out when I was 16. I lay down on that bed, stared at the ceiling, and tried to figure out how I had ended up back here, 29 years old, and hiding in my parents' house from a marriage that lasted less than a day. The next few days passed in a haze. I called in sick to work, unable to face the questions and the sympathy I would get from my colleagues who had all been at the wedding. I spent most of my time in my room, alternating between sleeping and staring at nothing. Ashley checked in on me constantly, bringing me food I didn't eat and trying to get me to talk about my feelings. My parents tiptoed around me like I was made of glass. On Wednesday, 3 days after my wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ryan? It's Miranda, Natalie's maid of honor, the one whose relationship drama had supposedly been the reason for the late-night phone call. Miranda, I said flatly. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know what was going on between Natalie and Derek. If I had known, I would have told you. I would have stopped the wedding. I'm so sorry. I believed her. Miranda and I had always gotten along well, and she had never seemed like the type to keep secrets or cover for bad behavior. It's not your fault, I said. I know, but I still feel terrible. And Ryan, I think you should know something. Natalie has been calling me, telling me her side of the story. She's painting this whole thing like it was some kind of star-crossed love story, like she and Derek couldn't help their feelings, like you'll understand someday that this was meant to be. I felt my jaw clench. Is that so? Yeah, and she's been telling people that you're being unreasonable, that you won't give her time to figure things out, that you're rushing into an annulment out of anger rather than thinking it through. She's making herself out to be the victim in all this. The audacity of it stunned me. She had cheated on me, left me on our wedding night, and now she was telling our mutual friends that I was the bad guy for not being understanding about her need to explore her feelings. Thank you for telling me, I said to Miranda. There's more, she continued. I don't know if this helps or makes things worse, but I did some digging. I talked to some other people who were around them during the wedding planning. Ryan, they weren't subtle. Multiple people saw them together, saw the way they looked at each other, saw them holding hands when they thought no one was watching. Everyone just assumed you knew and were okay with it, or that they were just being overly friendly. But it was obvious to anyone paying attention that something was going on. That hurt more than I expected. It wasn't just that they had betrayed me. It was that they had humiliated me, carrying on in front of our friends, making me look like a fool who couldn't see what was happening in his own relationship. Did you see anything? I asked Miranda. She hesitated. Yeah, at the rehearsal dinner I saw them outside together. I had gone out to take a phone call, and they were around the corner of the building. They didn't see me. Derek had his hand on her face, and they were standing really close, talking quietly. I thought maybe they were just having a moment. Maybe Natalie was nervous and he was comforting her. I didn't think it was romantic, but looking back now, they were probably planning their exit strategy. I finished for her. Probably. She agreed quietly. I'm really sorry, Ryan. You deserve so much better than this. After I hung up with Miranda, I sat with this new information. They had been obvious. People had seen them, and not one person had thought to mention it to me, to give me a heads up that my fiancé and my best friend were displaying signs of inappropriate intimacy. Maybe they really had thought I knew. Maybe they had thought we had some kind of open relationship arrangement. Or maybe they just hadn't wanted to get involved, hadn't wanted to be the bearer of bad news, had hoped it would all work itself out without them having to take a stand. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying moments from the past 3 months, seeing them differently now with the context I had. The way Natalie had insisted Derek needed to be involved in so much of the planning. The way Derek had always seemed to know exactly what Natalie wanted, sometimes before I did. The times Natalie had been distant or distracted, and when I asked what was wrong, she would say she was just stressed about wedding stuff. The nights she had stayed late at work, or so she said. The weekends she had spent with her bridesmaids doing wedding shopping, coming home with bags from stores, but seeming more exhausted than excited. I had been so trusting, so stupidly, blindly trusting. I had never once questioned her loyalty, never once doubted Derek's friendship, never once thought to look deeper at the signs that must have been there all along. Around 2 a.m., I got out of bed and went downstairs. My father was in the kitchen, couldn't sleep either apparently. He was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, and when he saw me, he poured another cup and slid it across to me. Can't sleep either? He asked. I shook my head and sat down across from him. We drank our coffee in silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. When your mother and I got married, we were young, really young. I was 22, she was 20. We thought we knew everything about love and commitment, and then life got hard, the way it does, and we had to figure out if we really meant those vows we made. I didn't know where he was going with this, but I listened. There were times in those early years when it would have been easy to walk away, when we fought about money or family or all the stupid things young couples fight about. But we didn't walk away. We chose each other every day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Natalie didn't choose me, I said quietly. She chose Derek. I know, son. And I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse. I'm telling you because I want you to understand that what happened with Natalie isn't about you. It's not because you weren't enough or didn't do enough or weren't the right husband. It's because she didn't understand what marriage means. She didn't understand that love is a choice you make, not just a feeling you have. So what do I do now? I asked, voicing the question that had been haunting me for days. You move forward, he said simply. You grieve what you lost. You feel angry and hurt and betrayed. You let yourself experience all of those feelings without trying to rush through them. And then, when you're ready, you rebuild. You figure out who you are without her. You rediscover the parts of yourself that got lost in that relationship. And eventually, you open yourself up to love again with someone who understands what you're worth. I wanted to believe him. But sitting there in my parents' kitchen at 2 a.m., divorced from reality by exhaustion and heartbreak, the idea of ever loving anyone again seemed impossible. The next morning, Thursday, I forced myself to get out of bed and take a shower. I put on actual clothes instead of the sweatpants I had been living in. I ate breakfast with my parents. Small steps toward feeling human again. Around 10 a.m., my lawyer called. Ryan, I've got news. Natalie contacted my office. She's willing to sign the annulment papers without contest. She agrees to the terms we outlined. We can probably have this wrapped up in 4 weeks instead of 6. That's good, I said, though I felt nothing. Just a hollow emptiness where my emotions should have been. There's one more thing, Barbara continued. She's asking if you'd be willing to meet with her, face to face. She says she wants to apologize in person and explain everything. No, I said immediately. I think that's wise, Barbara agreed. There's nothing she can say that would change the situation, and seeing her would probably just make things harder for you. Tell her if she wants to communicate with me, she can do it through you. I have nothing to say to her. After that call, I decided I needed to do something. I couldn't keep hiding in my parents' house, wallowing in my pain. I needed to start taking back control of my life. So I called my principal and told her I would be back to work on Monday. School didn't start for another week, but teachers were supposed to be back preparing classrooms and attending meetings. I needed the structure, needed the distraction. Then I drove to the house that Natalie and I had bought together. We had closed on it a month before the wedding, had spent several weekends there, painting and cleaning and making plans for renovations. We were supposed to move in when we got back from our honeymoon. Now, walking through the empty rooms, all I could see was the ghost of the future we would never have. I spent the afternoon there, making a list of everything that needed to be done. The house was in both our names, but I wanted it. It was mine. I had found it, had convinced Natalie it was perfect despite needing work, had put together the down payment mostly from my own savings. I texted Barbara and told her to add the house to the annulment negotiations. I wanted sole ownership, and I was willing to buy out Natalie's portion of the equity. While I was at the house, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Ryan, it's Derek. I felt my grip tighten on the phone. I blocked your number. How are you calling me? I'm using a different phone. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. I don't want to hear it, I said. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes and then you never have to speak to me again. Something in his voice made me stay on the line. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was a need for closure. Maybe I was just a glutton for punishment. Fine, 5 minutes. Thank you. He took a breath. Ryan, I know nothing I say can make this right. I know I destroyed our friendship and betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. But I need you to know the truth, the whole truth, not just the version you've probably been imagining. Go ahead, I said coldly. Natalie and I didn't plan this. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. The feelings developed gradually. It started out innocent, just spending time together during wedding planning. But somewhere along the way, it became something more, and I should have told you the moment I realized what was happening. That's on me. That's my failure. You had 3 months, I said. 3 months, to be honest. I know, and I can't explain why I didn't tell you except that I'm a coward. I kept thinking the feelings would go away. I kept telling myself that once you two were married, everything would go back to normal and I could just bury what I felt. But it didn't work. The closer we got to the wedding, the worse it got. So you decided to steal my fiancée on my wedding night instead. It wasn't like that, Derek protested. I didn't steal her. She came to me. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't be around you two anymore. She's the one who chose to come to my apartment. Semantics, I snapped. You pursued her. You built an emotional relationship with her while she was engaged to me. You created the conditions for her to make that choice. Don't act like you're innocent here. You're right, he admitted. You're absolutely right. I'm not innocent. I'm guilty of everything you're accusing me of. I pursued her. I let my feelings develop instead of shutting them down. I continued spending time with her even when I knew it was wrong. And worst of all, I stood up at your wedding and acted like I was happy for you when really I was dying inside watching her marry you. The honesty of it, the raw admission, caught me off guard. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. Because I've already destroyed our friendship, so I might as well be completely honest now. And because I want you to know that Natalie genuinely did love you. She wasn't faking it. She wasn't using you. She loved you and she loved me, and she didn't know what to do with those conflicting feelings. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it's the truth. It doesn't matter, I said. Love isn't enough if you don't choose to act on it, if you don't honor the commitment you made. Natalie might have loved me, but she didn't love me enough to stay faithful, and you didn't value our friendship enough to be honest with me. I know, Derek said quietly. And I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. I lost my best friend. I lost someone who was like a brother to me. And for what? For a relationship with Natalie that probably won't even last because it's built on betrayal and lies. You think you two won't make it? I asked, surprised. I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe this is real and we'll live happily ever after. But Ryan, between you and me, I don't think so. I think once the excitement of the forbidden romance wears off, we're going to look at each other and see the people we hurt to be together. We're going to remember that we built our relationship on the ruins of your marriage and my friendship with you. That's not exactly a strong foundation. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted them to fail, wanted them to realize too late that what they had wasn't worth what they destroyed. But another part of me, the part that was exhausted and sad and tired of hurting, just wanted to be done with both of them. Is that all? I asked. Is that what you called to tell me? No, I called to tell you that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I know those words don't mean anything right now, but I needed to say them, and I called to tell you that I'm going to make this right, as much as I can. How? I asked skeptically. The house you and Natalie bought. She told me you want sole ownership. I'm going to pay you back the money she put into it. Her portion of the down payment and closing costs. It's the least I can do. I was stunned. Derek, that's almost $30,000. I know, and it's nothing compared to what I owe you, but it's something. Consider it partial payment for the years of friendship I threw away. I'll have my lawyer send the check to your lawyer. Use it to make that house yours, to start over without any ties to Natalie. I don't want your money, I said automatically. Take it anyway, please. Let me do this one thing to try to make amends. We ended the call shortly after that. I stood in the empty house, looking around at the rooms that were supposed to be filled with my future, and I felt something shift inside me. Derek's offer, while it couldn't undo the betrayal, was at least an acknowledgement of the harm he had caused. It was action, not just empty words. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved quickly. Natalie signed the annulment papers. Derek's check arrived, exactly as he promised. I used it to buy out Natalie's share of the house, and I hired contractors to start the renovations we had planned. Painting, new flooring, updating the kitchen. I threw myself into the project, spent every free moment there, making decisions about tile and fixtures and paint colors. Work helped too. Being back in the classroom, preparing for the new school year, interacting with my colleagues who were kind enough not to ask too many questions about my non-existent honeymoon. I coached basketball practice, ran drills with kids who just wanted to play and didn't care about my personal drama. Slowly, painfully, I started to feel like myself again. Not the same self I had been before the wedding. That person was gone, destroyed by betrayal and heartbreak. But a new self, harder and more careful, but also clearer about what I wanted and what I deserved. The annulment was finalized on a Tuesday in mid-September. Barbara called to tell me it was done, that legally my marriage to Natalie had never existed. I thanked her, hung up the phone, and sat in my classroom after school had ended, trying to process how I felt. I thought I would feel relief, closure, something definitive. Instead, I just felt tired. That evening, I went to the house and kept working on renovations. I was installing new light fixtures in the kitchen when my phone rang. Miranda again. "Hey Ryan, I wanted to give you an update. Natalie and Derek broke up." I set down my screwdriver, processing this information. "When?" "Last week. Apparently it imploded pretty spectacularly. Natalie kept feeling guilty about what they did to you. Derek kept feeling like she was comparing him to you. They fought constantly. She moved back in with her parents. He's apparently drinking too much and missing work. It's a mess." I should have felt vindicated. Derek had been right when he said their relationship probably wouldn't last. But instead, I just felt sad. Sad for all of us. For the pain and destruction we had all endured for a relationship that hadn't even survived 2 months. "Natalie's been asking about you," Miranda continued, "wanting to know how you're doing, if you're seeing anyone, if you hate her." "Tell her I'm fine," I said, "and tell her to stop asking about me. She made her choice. She needs to live with it and leave me alone." "Will do. And Ryan, I'm proud of you. You handled this whole situation with so much grace. A lot of people would have fallen apart or gotten vengeful. You just kept moving forward." After we hung up, I thought about that. Grace. I didn't feel particularly graceful. I felt damaged and bitter and angry, but maybe that was okay. Maybe moving forward didn't mean feeling okay about what happened. Maybe it just meant choosing to keep living, keep working, keep building a life, even when everything in you wanted to give up. By October, the house was nearly finished. I had moved in, had furnished it with new stuff that had no memories attached, had created a space that was entirely mine. I hosted my first dinner party there, invited my parents and Ashley and a few colleagues from work. We ate pizza and laughed and christened my new home with good memories to replace the bad ones. In November, I went on my first date since the wedding, a setup by a well-meaning friend, a woman who taught at a neighboring school. It was awkward, and I wasn't ready, but I went anyway, because I needed to prove to myself that I could. We didn't have chemistry, didn't go on a second date, but it was a step. By December, I had started to feel like I might actually be okay someday. Not today, maybe not for a while, but someday. I was learning to trust myself again, to trust my judgment, to believe that I was worthy of love even though I had been treated as disposable. I was learning that being betrayed didn't mean I was unlovable. It just meant I had trusted the wrong people. I ran into Derek once, accidentally, at a coffee shop in early January. We made eye contact across the room, and for a moment I saw pain and regret and shame flash across his face. Then he looked away, paid for his coffee, and left without approaching me. I let him go. There was nothing left to say. I never saw or spoke to Natalie again. I heard through mutual friends that she was in therapy, trying to work through her issues with commitment and honesty. I heard that she felt tremendous guilt about what she had done. I heard that she hoped someday I might be able to forgive her. I didn't respond to any of these second-hand messages. Forgiveness wasn't something I was ready to consider, and I didn't owe it to her anyway. What I learned from the whole experience was this: love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. It's choosing honesty over convenience. It's choosing faithfulness over temptation. It's choosing your partner even when something or someone else seems exciting or new or thrilling. Natalie had feelings for me, but she didn't choose me. Derek valued our friendship, but he didn't choose to protect it. And I, in my trusting naivety, had chosen to believe the best of people without protecting myself. We had all made choices, and we all had to live with the consequences. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, I want you to know that you will survive it. It won't feel like it at first. It will feel like drowning, like being torn apart, like the pain will never end, but it will end. You will wake up one day and realize you didn't think about them for a whole hour, then a whole morning, then a whole day, and eventually they'll just be a part of your past, a painful chapter in your story, but not the whole book. You're stronger than you think you are. You're more resilient than you know, and you deserve someone who chooses you every single day without hesitation or doubt. Today I'm in my house that's entirely mine, living a life I've built from the ground up after it all fell apart. I coach a basketball team that made it to state finals. I teach history to students who actually seem interested in learning. I have friends who showed up for me when everything was dark. I have family who loved me through the worst time of my life. And someday, when I'm ready, I'll open my heart again. Not to someone like Natalie, who couldn't handle the weight of commitment. Not to someone like Derek, who chose selfishness over loyalty. But to someone who understands that love is a choice, a daily recommitment, a conscious decision to be faithful and honest and present even when it's hard. Because that's what I learned on my wedding night when my wife vanished with my best man. I learned that the right person wouldn't have left. The right person would have chosen me, even when faced with temptation or confusion or complicated feelings. The right person would have honored the vows we made, would have come to me with honesty, would have worked through the problems instead of running away. Natalie wasn't the right person. Derek wasn't the right friend. But somewhere out there is someone who will be, someone who will see my value and choose me consistently and without reservation. And I'm willing to wait for that person, to be that person for them in return. So if you're sitting alone right now, heartbroken and betrayed, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, I'm telling you that you will. Not today, maybe not this month or even this year, but you will. You'll rebuild. You'll rediscover yourself. You'll learn to trust again, more carefully this time, with better boundaries and clearer standards. And when love comes around again, you'll be ready for it. Not the shallow, selfish kind of love that destroys and betrays, but the real kind. The kind that chooses you on your wedding night and every night after. The kind that's worth waiting for. What would you do if you were in my situation? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Drop your story in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, subscribe so you don't miss future updates. Remember, you are not defined by who left you. You are defined by how you rose after they did.